I'm the best tailor.
Madam Ngozi was known throughout the city of Asaba as a miracle worker with her needle and thread. Every day, people line up outside her shop, eager to have her create the perfect dresses for weddings, parties, and other events. It wasn't just that she made beautiful designs. She crafted rare creations that no one else had seen before, all while being the fastest tailor around. A dress that took other tailors weeks or even months to complete, Madam Ngozi could finish it in just 1 hour. When you enter her shop, she would take your measurements, and by the time you return, your outfit, complete with a unique design that no one else had, was ready for you. Sometimes you will sit there and wait as she sew your clothes. No one questioned her methods. They were simply trained to receive what no one else could provide. However, there was one strict rule in her shop. You must never, under any circumstance, try on your clothes there. Madam Ngozi Tailoring established stood at the edge of bustling market in Asaba, and her reputation was legendary. People traveled from far and wide to have her create custom dress that were unlike anything that had ever worn before. It wasn't just her stunning design that enchanted customers. It was also her incredible speed. Madam Ngozi could finish a garment within an hour. Her magical design and ability to create clothes that fit perfectly were truly remarkable, and she ensured that you receive your dress the same day. Despite her impressive work, the rule about not trying on the clothes in the shop was non-negotiable. Customers accepted this without hesitation, captivated by the convince about beauty of her creation. Unlike any other tailor shop where customer could try on clothes for fitting, Madam Ngozi took your extra measurements, crafted the garment with incredible precision, and then handed it to you in a beautiful wrap package. Customer would take their package home to try on the dresses, but once you left the shop, there was no bringing the clothes back, as they always fit perfectly. Some people whispered about her rule behind her back, but no one complained, as they appreciated receiving their clothes faster than from any other tailor. Other tailors in the city were incredibly envious of Madam Ngozi. She attracted all their customers, and her shop was constantly bustling, with lines spilling out into the streets. One sunny afternoon, Chika entered Madam Ngozi's shop, accompanied by her two friends, Ozoma and Femi. Chika was there to pick up the dress she had ordered for her cousin's wedding. She had told her friends about Madam Ngozi's exceptional skills and speed, and they found it hard to believe the story she shared. Is this really possible for a tailor to make such perfect dress so quick? Can Madam Ngozi really make a dress in an hour? They wondered. As they entered the shop, Uzoma's jaw dropped. The store was filled with most beautiful clothes they had ever seen. Dresses on this display, shimmered as if made from skills and diamonds, showcasing beautiful gowns, traditional wrapper, and modern design adorned in the manicures. Femi was astonished as she laterally ran her fingers across the delicate embryo of the dress. Wow, I can't believe it. I've never seen anything like this, Femi exclaimed. We should get our measurement taken too. I want a dress for my sister's wedding. I told you, Chika whispered proudly. Just wait until you see how fast she walks. Madam Ngozi was busy measuring a young girl who had just walked in. She quickly looked up and greeted them with a warm smile. She was an elder woman with a sharp eyes and hand that moved like lightning. Her face radiated calm and kindness, but there was a watchful glint in her eyes, as if she were always ensuring everyone obeyed her rules. Chika walked up to Madam Ngozi. I'm here to pick up my dress, ma. I can't wait to see them. Madam Ngozi nodded and walked into a back room. She returned almost instantly, holding a dress wrapped in a beautiful silk bag. It is ready. Madam Ngozi said, handing the bag to Chika. Remember the rule, no trying it on here. Chika smiled, nodding. Of course, Madam Ngozi, I'll try them at home. Femi, on the other hand, admired the clothes so much that she wanted one for herself, and they were ready to wait for an hour to take the dress back home. Then, Madam Ngozi grabbed her tape measure and measured Femi. While Madam Ngozi was busy with Femi's measurements, Uzoma walked toward a little corner, curious about the mysterious rule. As Chika and Femi distracted Madam Ngozi, Uzoma spotted the beautiful pink beaded dress on a mannequin. Oh my goodness, I love this. I think it will fit me very well, Uzoma thought to herself. She wanted the dress, but she did not want to buy it without trying it on. As Uzoma was admiring the dress, another customer was beside her, whispered, "Are you seriously going to try that here?" Eyes winded. You know the rule. I don't see it as a big deal, Uzoma replied. It's just a dress. I'll try it on. If it fits me, I'll buy it. If not, I'll put them back and nobody will even notice. Without thinking twice, Uzoma snuck into a corner between two mannequins where Madam Ngozi could not see her, and she wore the dress on top of her own dress. But as soon as she put it on, something strange happened. A chill ran down her spine, and the energy in the room felt different. Immediately, something was off. She froze and looked up to see Madam Ngozi notice the change in the room. Madam Ngozi felt sharp pain shoot through her hand. For a moment, it felt like time had stopped. Her hand trembled uncontrollably. The measuring tape she was holding on Femi fell from her fingers. Her instant screamed, something terrible has happened. Slowly, she looked up and turned her head towards the corner. When her eyes landed on Uzoma, hidden between two mannequins, wearing the dress, everything inside her changed. Madame Ngozi screamed, "No! What have you done?" Her voice was filled with terror, and her once calm, composed face twisted into rage. She rushed towards Uzoma, her hands shaking so violently that she could barely keep her balance. Chika and Femi were shocked by Madame Ngozi's sudden change towards Uzoma. She put everything and everyone out of her way. "What have you done?" Madame Ngozi screamed, pulling the dress off Uzoma's shoulder with trembling hands. "You have finished me. You have ruined everything. Get out. You must leave. Get out now." She yelled as she kicked everyone out of the shop. Her body trembled and her voice cracked, echoing through the shop and sending shivers down everyone's spine. Chika and Femi stood there, numbed and too shocked to move. Madame Ngozi had always been calm and kind. They had never seen her being so upset. With tears in her eyes, she turned to them, her voice filled with pain. "You have to leave. All of you. Get out of my shop." The three friends left, confused and shaking. Madame Ngozi's anger left them speechless, and they could not understand what had just happened. Why was the rule so important? Why did Madame Ngozi look so terrified? In the following days, strange things began to occur. Madame Ngozi's once steady and skilled hand started to shake uncontrollably. At first, she tried to ignore it, but the shaking only worsened. She could no longer sew like she used to, and her stitch began to fall apart. Dresses that had once fit perfectly were now loose and crooked. Each stitch she attempted fell apart. It took weeks for her to finish even one garment. Her customer began to complain bitterly, as they were used to bringing their fabrics and receiving their dress in just 1 hour. Now, she struggled to complete even a single dress a week. Desperate and out of option, Madame Ngozi returned to the woman who had originally helped her gain power. Unfortunately, there was no assistant to be found. Every night, she cried herself to sleep, knowing she was losing everything she had worked for. Her shop, her reputation, her dream, it was all slipping away. One evening, Chika couldn't stand it any longer. She felt guilty for what had happened to Madame Ngozi. Although she knew it was Ozoma who had broken the rules, she still felt responsible. She decided to visit Madame Ngozi, hoping to apologize. When she arrived at the shop, the door was unlocked, but the space was empty. The beautiful dresses that had once filled the shelf were gone. The walls were bare, and the room felt cold and eerie. Chika called out for Madame Ngozi, her voice echoing the silence. Madame Ngozi, are you here? She heard a faint sound coming from the back room and slowly walked towards it. When she opened the door, she gasped. Madame Ngozi was sitting on the floor, her hand covered in bandage. Her face was pale and tired. She looked up at Chika, her eyes filled with sorrow. I, I came to say I'm sorry, Chika whispered, her voice trembling. I don't mean for any of this to happen. Madame Ngozi shook her head, a sad smile on her face. It's not your fault, child. It was bound to happen sooner or later. The spirit has come for what they have given me. Chika felt heartache as she looked at Madame Ngozi, a woman who had once been strong and proud, now reduced to this. She wanted to help, but she did not know how. Madame Ngozi became a record, hidden in her shop away from the prying eyes of the people. She knew there was no escaping her fate. The spirit had given her a gift, but she had failed to protect it. A month later, Chika couldn't stop thinking about Madame Ngozi. Every time she looked at the beautiful dress she had picked up that day, her mind wandered back to the woman who had made it. Madame Ngozi had been kind and talented, and her talent for weighed heavy on Chika's heart. She couldn't shake off the image of Madame Ngozi's swollen, painful hands and the despair she had seen in her eyes. No one else had come to visit her or check on her. Chika realized that if anyone was going to help her, it has to be her. So after gathering some strength for herself, she went back to Madame Ngozi's shop and gently knocked on the door. Madame Ngozi, it is me, Chika. Please let me in, she said softly. After a long pause, she heard a shuffling footstep approaching. Madame Ngozi opened the door, her eyes swollen from tears, her face pale and warm. She was clearly too weak to stand on her own, and without another word, Chika stepped in, carefully helping her to sit down. She could see Madame Ngozi's hand wrapped in clothes, but still the skin was swollen and covered in sore that hasn't started to heal. You can't go on like this, ma. We're going to get you help, Chika said softly, holding her hand. With Madame Ngozi barely able to resist, Chika gently helped her up and took a taxi to the nearest hospital. When they arrived at the hospital, the doctors were stunned by the sight of her inflamed, damaged hands. They shifted and whispered among themselves. This level of swelling and sore was something they had barely seen, and it made them wonder if something deeper was going on. What could have caused this? One of the doctors murmured as they began to treat the sore with the strongest equipment and medication they had. Despite their best efforts, Madame Ngozi's hand did not respond quickly to the treatment. Days passed, but the wound remained stubbornly unhealed, as though an invisible weight kept them from improving. Feeling helpless but determined, Chika determined it was time to bring more than just a medical support. She knew Madame Ngozi had always been deeply spiritual, so she reached out to few pastors from her church, explaining the situation to them. They agreed to come and pray for Madame Ngozi. The pastors arrived at Madame Ngozi's room early the next morning with anointing oil. They began to pray earnestly over her, seeking to break any curse that might have been cast upon her. Every day, Chika sat with Madame Ngozi after each season of prayer and treatment, encouraging her to stay strong. The pastor prayed over her hands, heart and mind, lifting her spirit. They even prayed over the entire shop, moving from room to room, blessing each corner to rid if any lingering darkness. The prayers continued for days. with Chika staying close to give comfort and reassurance. Slowly, the swelling in Madame Ngozi's hand began to decrease, and the sore started to close up. The doctors, witnessing this surprise recovery, were amazed. They knew it was a miracle. Madame Ngozi herself was astonished to see her hands gradually returning to normal. For the first time in weeks, she could move her fingers without pain, and the sores had almost completely faded. The curse had finally been lifted, and Madame Ngozi's health was restored. Once she was finally healed, Chika gently suggested that it might be the time for them to reopen her shop. Chika, I don't know, Madame Ngozi hesitated, looking away. After everything that happened, I doubt if anyone will come back. People are probably too afraid or angry to step their foot in that place again. Chika understood her fear, but wasn't ready to give up on a shop that had been part of their life for so long. Let me help you, Chika urged, placing her hand on Madame Ngozi's shoulder. You can make a fresh start. I was starting as the new owner, and you can walk alongside me. We will show people that the shop is safe and the troubles are gone. They can try on their clothes in the shop. Madame Ngozi remained unsure, but Chika's presidency gave her some courage. Chika, determined to bring back the old customers, decided to return to the shop. She reached out to her two close friends, Uzoma and Femi, explaining her plan and asking for their help. Both women were more than willing to pitch in. For the first time in weeks, Chika, Uzoma, and Femi worked tirelessly to convince people to return to the shop. They assured everyone that Madame Ngozi was doing well and no harm would come to anyone who visits the shop, stating that the old rules were gone for good. The shop will open with a welcoming atmosphere, a new look, and no rules. Madame Ngozi joined in nervously and assisted Chika with her sewing skill as a quiet partner. At first, customers were instant, peeking into the shop but not fully stepping inside. Some would look around and whisper uncertainly to each other about whether the cause was truly gone. Chika, however, remained patient and welcoming, greeting everyone warmly and inviting them to try the shop service again. She and her friends assured the customer that nothing strange will happen to them and that Madame Ngozi was simply a regular tailor who had gone through a tough time. As the time passed, the presidency of Chika and her friend began to pay off. Slowly but surely, people returned, seeing orders and trusting the shop once more. Surprisingly, Madame Ngozi's skill was too exceptional, and she was creating a rare and stunning design, even though it took her several days to complete each outfit. Customers were pleased to receive beautiful design that no other tailor in town could replicate. To meet the demand, Chika hired more tailors so customers could get their outfits faster. It was as if a fresh energy had washed over the once fair tailor shop, restoring its life. With Chika's support and encouragement, Madame Ngozi began to regain her confidence. Although she wasn't the face of the shop anymore, she was grateful to be part of it and to see the business thrive again. Together, Chika, Madame Ngozi, and the team rebuilt the shop reputation. Eventually, the shop became busier than ever. Chika's persistency and dedication paid off, attracting customers from all over the town who trusted the new management and the warmth that filled the place. Chika had given Madame Ngozi a second chance, not just for her business, but for her life. Filled with gratitude, Madame Ngozi was contented to work behind the scene, knowing she had a true friend who stood by her when everyone had left. Thanks for watching.